All right, what's going on, guys? Simple Sports back, another episode, more NBA stuff. So let's get right to it. So trade deadline is come and gone. A lot of big moves happened, specifically with Cleveland and LA. A couple of other moves, nothing of huge concern, at least not to me personally. Those were the two big ones. Obviously, I'm a Laker fan, and obviously they are, one of the talking points of the NBA, just because they are the Lakers. And the Cleveland Cavaliers as well, obviously. They are a talking point of the NBA, being that LeBron James is on their team, and simple as that. So, let's talk about it. But I do want to talk about a couple of things NBA related. I want to start with the Lakers just because, as I said, they're my favorite team, so I want to start there. I have to say, and I said this in a previous episode, I'm pretty excited and I'm pretty happy that they are actually somewhat relevant again, even though they're not necessarily good, but they are being talked about, and they have set themselves up, at least potentially, to be good in the future. So for those of you who live on the Rock and aren't aware, they created a lot of cap space and more cap space to be had after the end of the season. Contracts are up. They got a couple of expiring contracts on the books, got a couple of bad contracts off the books, things of that nature. So where do we begin? Here's the thing, and Charles Barkley made a point of this. It's a great move if it works out. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great move if things work out the way they want them to, and they actually do manage to land one or two superstars. If they don't, then they're essentially going to have to start from scratch. Now, they do have a 2-year free agency window to make some major moves and turn this thing around really, really quickly from a fringe playoff team as they currently are, which even if they were to be in the playoffs, obviously I don't think they wouldn't make a whole lot of noise, but nevertheless, they are on the outside, just barely looking in, and it's not outside of the realm of possibility that they make the playoffs. So, fringe playoff team to a potential title contender in a matter of a year or two, depending on who they can get, maybe some other trades that they can make, things of that nature. So it is nice to see that potential. The issue, and like Charles Barkley pointed out, is it's not like they made a move that is now set in stone. It is a move to potentially get better, not to actually get better. So that is the one concerning part. But I will say I don't think they will have a problem landing a superstar. I think it is a matter of who they get. And so obviously the elephant in the room is LeBron James. Will he go to LA after this year? It was looking a lot more likely prior to the trade deadline. Now, not to say it doesn't look likely or possible. I don't want to say I think it's likely, but it's certainly possible. I think it is either LeBron James or Paul George that they're going after, but I think they want both. But the issue is I don't think either of them are going to go there alone. I think they're going to need one or the other to get both. Obviously, they're going to need one or the other to get both. But I guess in other words, I think it's either both or none is what I'm trying to say. I don't think they're going to get LeBron and not Paul George or vice versa. They're going to get both, or they're going to get neither one. Or they're going to wait until 2019 when you got another, I guess, crop of free agents. Not to mention you get 2 years of the young players, 2 years of Kuzma, 2 years of Ball, another 2 years of Ingram, and I'm counting this year, obviously, but another 2 years of Ingram. Maybe Luke Walton's the coach, maybe he's not, maybe it's Fitzdale, maybe it's someone else, who knows. But all in all, it's exciting as a fan just to see progress. I said this a lot with Tennessee during the NFL season. It wasn't so much that I thought that they were a great team. It was just nice to see them not be stuck on the bottom anymore. And that's the same feeling I'm getting now with the Lakers. It's nice that they are now progressing from bottom of the league to at least the potential to jump up, pretty significantly. And that's the part that gets fans excited, at least gets me excited. And fans probably want the end result. They don't really care about the process. I'm a fan of the process. I'm a fan of the progression. I like to see how things are built. I like to see what goes into what, and so it's nice in that regard for me to see them make some progress. So props to LA. Magic Johnson and Pelinka are making some moves. They're making some good moves, some beneficial moves, not some boneheaded contracts outside the KCP contract, which I think was as much of a nod to the LeBron camp as it was to them just needing a player. Not that he's a bad player. He's obviously a pretty good player. He's just not, I don't think he's worth that kind of money. But who am I to say who's worth what? That's not my place. The other thing I want to talk about, the one bad thing that I didn't like about the move is they acquired Isaiah Thomas. And before anyone goes nuts, and this is one of those things that you can't say without offending someone. There's no nice way of putting it. I'm just not a huge Isaiah Thomas fan for what he thinks that he is. Isaiah Thomas thinks that he is a Batman, and that's fine. I have no issue with him thinking that. Listen, if I would walk into a Laker tryout right now thinking I was the best player on the floor. That's just the mentality that you have to have, and I'm 100% cool with that. I have nothing against that mentality. I just don't think that is the reality. I don't think he is a Batman. I think he is a Robin. I think he could be a good Robin. I think he could be a good sixth man. I think if he could give you 18 to 20 off the bench, like a Jamal Crawford used to be able to do, or like a Lou Williams, and Lou Williams can go out and get you 50, as we've seen, players like that, Eric Gordon, just to name a few current players, players in the past that used to be. Lamar Odom was like that. He would get you 15 to 20 points off the bench with the Lakers anyway. There's tons of guys. You can go down the list of guys who were like that. And I think that's what Isaiah Thomas is. And I think Isaiah Thomas had an outlier year, and it has elevated his status, I guess, to himself, but not necessarily elevated his game. I don't think he's a 29 point per game player. I think he is a 15 to 20 point per game player who is probably better served coming off the bench. Listen, if it were up to me, I'd love to have Isaiah Thomas on the team as the backup point guard. I wouldn't mind that one bit. But I think the conflict is going to come where he's going to want to be the starter. He's going to want to get paid max dollars, and I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm not overly concerned with it. I don't think he's going to be on the roster after this year, but again, what do I know? But B, if he was, I wouldn't be upset with it as long as he were the backup and he were cool with being the backup. So we'll see how that whole thing plays out. He had a decent game the other night. He also, if you look at the numbers, he put up, 20 points. So people will look at that and say, see, look, everything's fine. But you have to look at the game. You have to watch the actual game itself. You can't just be beholden to the numbers. He also had, I think, 6 or 7 turnovers. So it is what it is. I think as a sixth man, I think he'd be fine. I don't think he is the Batman. I don't think he's a starting point guard, really, for any team. I don't think any team should have Isaiah Thomas as a starting point guard. He's just simply too much of a liability, especially, obviously, on the defensive end. And he's very limited offensively, both because of his height and size and lack of explosiveness due to injury. And the fact, again, he's 5'9". There's not but so, again, it's not a slight. It's just reality. There's not but so much you can do on the NBA court at 5'9". It is what it is. So we'll see how things shake out. Like I said, I'm pretty pumped as a Lakers fan that things are going in the right direction. But right now we're in limbo. We'll see how things shake out over the summer this year and in 2019. So that's it for the Lakers. Let me move on to the Cavs really quick because I have a lot to say about the Cavs. So I've been big on the all year. The Cavs have looked like hot garbage, and people were. Here's the thing: all day today, all today and yesterday, or not today and yesterday, but all day today and some of Friday, maybe even some of Thursday, people were talking about the moves that they were going to make at the trade deadline, and a lot of people, pretty much everyone, expected them to make some move. It was necessary, really. It wasn't even a matter of choice. At least it didn't seem to be that way. It looked to be they needed to make a move or things were just going to get ugly. They were already getting ugly, and they did. They pulled off some massive trades, some massive moves. They made the team better, and I will be the first to tell you that as currently constructed, I think they are the favorite in the East. I was saying before that they weren't the favorite in the East. That was with the previously constructed roster, and I did not foresee a move this massive and this much turnover happening. And my point is, all of the LeBron supporters, listen, I have no issue with people supporting who they like, have at it, but don't kid yourself, okay? None of you saw this coming, so don't pretend. Like Nick Wright this morning on First Things First is all talking about, well, how did you not know this trade was coming? And you should have had them as favorites in the East already, and blah blah blah. No, okay, they were a hot dumpster fire, and they got better with a couple of trades, and now they appear to be the best team in the East. Now, I will say, I'm not ready to crown them quite yet. I think I need to see a couple of games and see how things gel. They played a game against Boston, who, quite frankly, to me, did not play well. They had 3 possession at one point where there were 3 god-awful turnovers in a row. And that's not to make an excuse, but my point is I'm not going to project the remainder of this season based on that one game. I'm just not going to do that. That makes no sense to me. And that's the part I don't understand with both the media and fans is everyone is so volatile in their emotion and their stance. It's day to day, and I understand it's a fluid situation. Like the MVP voting, 1 week it'll be someone else, next week it'll be James Harden, the next week it'll be KD, the week after that it'll be LeBron, and then it'll be Kyrie, and it'll be whoever you want to put in the MVP conversation. I understand it's a fluid situation, much like the Cavs roster situation, and quite frankly, who you think is the favorite or who you think are the top 3 or 4 teams in a particular conference. I get it's a fluid situation, but it's not so fluid that it has to change game to game. And that is the issue, because 3 or 4 days ago, the Cavs didn't look like they were going to make it out of the East. And now, after a game and a few trades, they are the prohibited favorites by a mile to come out of the East. And that is the part that I don't understand. What is it that changed so drastically in a couple of days that after a couple of trades, and like I said, I get it. I fully admit that they got significantly better. Did they get so much better overnight and after a game with no chemistry whatsoever that they went from, mid Eastern Conference as far as ranking to now they are all of a sudden the clear-cut favorites by a mile? I don't think so. That's just me, and I don't understand the volatility of why people do that. Like, someone has a bad game, all of a sudden, for example, I'll give you another perfect example. The Warriors are struggling somewhat, and they are, all of a sudden, people are talking about, oh my God, are the Warriors going to make it out of the West? Which is a fair question. I'm not saying that they're a 100% lock, but they're like 95%. And they've had a struggle as of late, and all of a sudden, people are ready to write them off, and I don't get that either. Same thing with the Cavs. They were struggling all year, and now they made a couple of trades and have played one game, and all is well in Cleveland. And I don't get that. That bothers me. I'm not that volatile in my emotions. I like to take a bigger sample size. Maybe if this were 3 weeks after the trade deadline, they got a couple of games under their belt, I might be saying something different. But the day after, basically, I don't get that. Makes no sense to me. But we'll see how things shake out. As of right now, if you had me pick, I would say, if I had to pick right now, I would say I would trust LeBron and the Cavs more than I would trust Boston or Toronto. But it's like 51-49 for me right now until I see more games from both teams, because Boston has been struggling lately. But I've also seen Boston go on a huge tear. I saw Cleveland go on a huge tear, and then they slumped. They kind of slumped and then went on a huge tear and then slumped again. But still, it's the way it works. Everyone's up in arms about the Warriors. Pre-All-Star break last year, I believe they were something along the lines of like 47-9, and this year they were like 41-13. And part of that is because, they stretched the season out just a little bit, so there's a couple less games played. But so there's a couple games difference. And last year it was like, oh, it's a no contest. The Warriors are going to win the title. Even when Cleveland, to me, I thought had a better team. Versus this year, Cleveland has, in my opinion, a worse team, or at best an equal team. And the Warriors, at least on paper, appear to have gotten better. They acquired Nick Young and a couple other players. Their young players got better. The vets all, and with KD and Steph and then the rest of those guys, they all got another year together, or they got a full year together last year that ended with a title. And this year, so far through 50 odd plus games. I don't understand how like this massive swing back and forth makes no sense to me. They are now struggling and possibly won't make it out of the West after a couple of games of I think they lost at one point like 4 out of 5, 3 in a row, something like that. And now all of a sudden it's chaos in Golden State, whereas Cleveland made a couple of trades and played one game, and now all of a sudden they're the prohibitive favorites. I don't get that. And maybe it's part of the LeBron James, I don't know, I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me to swing that much with so little information. I think if you're swaying that much with that little information, that you don't really know what you're talking about or what you believe in. I know what I see, and I don't see enough to make me go from one extreme to the other overnight. Now, if they had made if they had acquired, say, DeMarcus Cousins pre-injury and maybe like an all-star level point guard, or maybe not all-star level, but maybe like a definitely an upgrade at point guard or something like that, and a couple of sparks off the bench, then you might have a different argument. But it's not like they acquired a couple of superstars, okay? They got Jordan Clarkson, who I love. I'm sad to see him leave L.A. He's one of my favorite players. I said a long time ago when he first got drafted that he was going to be a special player. And he is. He's in the vein, to me, with the the Jamal Crawfords, and as well as similar to Isaiah Thomas. He can come in and he can get hot in a minute, or he could be really cold and just kind of go with the flow. Larry Nance Jr. is, enough said about him. He's a spark. He's a hustler. He's a grinder in the paint, and he'll put on a poster every game and get the bench and the rest of the team hyped. Energy player. Love him. Rodney Hood's a solid player. Very streaky shooter, but he can go out and get you 20, 25 on a given night easily. I don't understand the volatility in the emotions. I think people need to calm down. Nick Wright went from, being depressed one day to, oh my God, the Cavs are going to win the title. And he's like boasting as if he also saw all of this coming. Like, no, you nor did anyone else see this coming. Everyone in the league, everyone around the league, players, coaches, GMs, you name it, fans, analysts, everyone saw that Cleveland wasn't playing well, and they were not as constructed going to win the East. They are now in a better position to do so, but to pretend as if you knew that they were going to be in this position is ridiculous. So that's all I got to say about that. I think they'll win the East, but like I said, I need to see a couple of games, at least 5 or 6 games, just to see how things progress. It's been a game. What happens if they lose 4 in a row? What happens if they lose the next 4 games? Then everyone's going to, then the blame's going to get passed all over again, and they're going to start pointing fingers here and pointing fingers there. Just let it breathe. It was like Lonzo Ball in the beginning of the year. 2 weeks in, and everyone's calling him a bust. I don't get that. He's 2 weeks into his entire NBA career, and he's a bust. And now we see he's actually a fairly decent player. He may not be a superstar, but he's a good player. He's a solid player. He clearly knows the game. He can see the floor very well. He's starting to find his jumper a little bit. It's definitely a lot better than it was. It takes time, and just like that takes time, the Cleveland Cavaliers getting chemistry and finding out how to play with each other and play with LeBron and come off the bench and do this and do that, play for a different coach, learn a new system, play in a different arena, pass it to different players that like it in different spots. People, like, all of those things matter. And to sit here and pretend that they are that much better in a day is to me is ridiculous. So that's where I stand on that. I think they are better, but I think we need to give it time to see how much better. You can't project, and that's the that's why you have these volatile or these hostile fans towards analysts, towards players, towards all of those types of people, because the people who are giving out the information, and I'm talking about the media, the people on TV, the people on the radio, the people writing in articles and things of that nature, you change and fluctuate so much on so little information with so little time put into it. As far as Cleveland could go out tomorrow and lose by 20, and it'll be, oh my God, the trade was a mess. They should have never done that. And then they'll come out the next night and win by 20 again, or they'll come out and beat a team by 20, and all of a sudden they're back to being championship contenders. That makes no sense to me. Just let it breathe. You can talk about the process. That's cool, but you don't have to crown them immediately. They're already being crowned as Eastern Conference Finals champs. And it's not like last year where they had a year to prepare, or excuse me, they had been together for a year, that entire team. They came into the year pretty much the same as last year, and a lot of the other teams did as well. And so it was fair at that point to sort of project them into the finals. Whereas this year, they had a completely new team, and the same things that they're saying now as far as them being the favorites in the East, they were saying at the beginning of the year. Oh, they got Isaiah. He's just as good as Kyrie. He can do what Kyrie did, if not better. He was averaging 30 a game last year. They got the one guy on Boston that could guard LeBron, Jay Crowder, or at least could bother him, is now on their team, so that's a plus. They got a vet in Channing Frye. Well, he was already on the team, if I'm not mistaken, but still, he's there. You got a backup point guard in Derrick Rose who can come in as a vet and give you solid minutes. He's got playoff experience. You heard all of these things prior to the season starting, and then it went to hell pretty quickly, and now all of a sudden it's rinse and repeat. And we're doing the same thing over again without giving it some time. Give it some time. Let's see how it plays out. Let's talk about this in a month and see where they are. Have they have they gone 5-8, or have they gone 8-2? Have they gone, are they 500? Are they below 500 over the next 10 games? Who knows where they're going to be? But it's going to take some time to really see what you have. And that's what people don't understand. They need to just let it breathe. And that's the part that bothers me, is people are so up and down in their emotions over the littlest bit of, or the smallest amount of information. Someone gets traded. Oh my God, they're the favorites. Someone gets hurt. Oh my God, they're going. The Eagles this year, Carson Wentz goes down, and all of a sudden their playoff or their Super Bowl and playoff hopes have just diminished. They were the number 1 seed, and they were underdogs in every single game. Let's see how it now that was a little bit different, obviously, because Foles actually didn't play terrible. I mean, he didn't play great in those last couple of regular season games. But my point is, the team itself was good. So all we needed was for Foles to actually perform well, and we saw what they were. They were the Super Bowl. To me, I thought, besides the Patriots, who they happened to beat, I thought they were the favorites in the NFC until Wentz went down, and I picked the Saints. But up until that point, it was the Eagles. And if it weren't for Nick Foles playing terribly in those last 2 games, then I would have still picked the Eagles. But that wasn't the case. Let's see what happens. What if someone gets hurt? What if Clarkson isn't happy with his role? What if Larry Nance isn't happy with his role? What if so-and-so isn't happy with their role? What if J.R. Smith goes back into a slump? What if there's a lot of what ifs. And rather than crown people immediately, let's just give it a little bit of time. So that's all I got to say about that. I just wanted to sort of get that out there. Like I said, if I had to choose right this moment, I would pick the Cavs, mostly because of LeBron James. But Boston might get Gordon Hayward back. Who knows what he's going to bring? Maybe he brings a big lift to them that they need offensively, because honestly, without Kyrie Irving, they're a little flat offensively. Maybe Gordon Hayward could change that if he's able to make it back for the playoffs. Maybe he's not. Who knows? But that's another situation. So Gordon Hayward comes back. Let's say he plays the last, I don't know what his timeline is. I have no idea. But let's say he comes back and is able to play the last 5 or 10 games of the regular season and looks phenomenal, like he never missed a step from out of Utah. Do they then jump back into favorites in the East? In this day, in today's climate, you never know. They might just. That's just the way people are. So I'm not overly committed to this Cleveland thing. Do I think they got better? 100% they got better. Do I think they're the favorites in the East as of right now? Just on paper, yes. Do I think Boston could still compete with them? Yes. Do I think Toronto could compete with them? I don't know. I think Boston is the only team, but we'll see. I think this and like everyone wants to write them off because they're going through a struggle right now. I don't get it. They were doing well and now they're struggling. Cleveland was struggling and now they seem to be doing better. What's the difference other than time? the time frame in which it's happening is the only difference. I don't know. People are just too up and down emotional. I'm pretty even keel. I like to receive as much information as I can before I make a decision. I'm not ready to crown them as Eastern Conference Finals champs just yet. Some people are, and hey, to each his own. You guys do your thing. We'll see how this thing shakes up over the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll all have a different opinion. Maybe mine will be different. Maybe I will have them as the overwhelming favorites in the East. Maybe I'll regress to having them back under Boston and Toronto. Who knows? We'll see how things shake out. But that's it. That's all I got for you guys on this episode. I know I did a lot of rambling, but hey, it is what it is. I'll see you next time. Peace.